Welcome back to Skills World Live. To kick off tonight's discussions, I'm delighted to be joined by the Minister for Skills and Apprenticeships in England, Gillian Keegan. Minister, thanks for coming back on the programme.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. Now, today is National Thank a Teacher Day. As the father of 3 kids, let me go first by thanking Mr. Harold, who is the head teacher of my son's secondary school in Brighton and Hove, Blatchington Mill. He's done a great job throughout this crisis, regularly communicating with parents and being very honest with us, actually, about the many challenges both he and his teaching staff face. Who, Minister, would you like to thank today?
Well, I'd like to thank a teacher from way back when I was at school, Mr. Ashcroft, who actually stayed behind every night from 3:30 to 5:30 for 2 years to teach me engineering and technical drawing, because at that time, believe it or not, girls were not allowed to take that option, and I wanted to take it. So he stayed behind for 2 of us, actually, 2 girls, and as a result of that, I ended up very much interested in technology, in maths, in engineering, and technical drawing. And I want to thank him, because when I think now, extraordinary sacrifice that he did that a couple of nights a week for 2 years to help me to do a bunch of extra GCSEs that I wouldn't have got to do otherwise. So I'd like to thank him. And then, of course, all the teachers all across the country who are just doing their best, really, to switch to online learning. And I think are doing an amazing job in most cases to really engage children in a medium, that they weren't used to working with a couple of months ago.
Yeah, big shout out there then for Mr. Ashcroft, inspiring teacher. Do you think he knew then that you would end up in the dizzy heights of Her Majesty's government as a minister responsible for education and skills?
No, but he would have been delighted. Unfortunately, he died not long after I became an MP, but he did know I became an MP.
Oh, that's good.
Which I think actually shocked him. I think probably my 30-year business career, which was, I started off in a car factory as a 16-year-old apprentice. That would have been something he definitely was instrumental in and would have imagined. I guess where I've ended up with, you couldn't really plot your way from there to being Minister for Apprenticeship and Skills. Sure. So no, I have to be surprised, as everybody else is.
Well, look, it's a great reminder, isn't it, Minister, of the impact that teachers have. Now, of course, it wouldn't have escaped, though, your attention that the department's guidance to reopen educational settings, including schools, sixth forms and colleges, is not without its critics. I mean, what do you say to those teacher representatives like the unions who are concerned about the safety of their members and pupils in, as they may see it, a rush back to reopening schools and colleges?
Well, I think there's no doubt, and I have a great deal of sympathy with anybody that has, a view that, we're stepping back, we're taking baby steps into reopening aspects of our school and aspects of our economy. And it's much harder to do that than the simple stay-at-home message. I mean, that one, whilst it's difficult to take away liberties and freedoms, it's been a very simple message and quite simple to adhere to. Taking baby steps back into what our new normal is going to be a lot more difficult. So I have a lot of sympathy. Everybody has their own individual circumstances. People are more fearful. Some people are more fearful than others. So I understand the fear. However, I think it's very important, because there is, for everything you do, every action there is a consequence, and the staying at home does not come without consequences. We know that our children now and young people have been out of education, for many, many weeks, and we know that has a massive impact on them. And we know that we have to, we go to school for a reason, we go to college for a reason. And whilst they've done a great job, and everybody's done a great job to move as much online as possible, we all know that it isn't a substitute for education. So we have to start that journey back. Yeah. And what we're saying is, based on, we have to make sure that the R rate is below 0, below 1. We've still got all of the 5 tests that have to be met. But what we're saying is start to make a plan. And I can't see any reason why, because we're going to have to use these plans, whether it's, on the 1st of June or the 2nd of June or, whenever it is, for different age groups, for different, types of institutions. Yeah. We are going to have to reopen schools. and we're going to have to do that in a
phased way. I think, as the government said, absolutely.
Yeah, and you don't have all the information. You do not have perfect information, and that's the difficulty.
I mean, you've been a real champion for 16 to 19 apprentices as well, and ensuring that they're written into the guidance. I mean, are you expecting, for example, these practical observations and endpoint assessments, insofar as they can take place, are you expecting to see apprentices now then complete from June the 1st?
Yes,
many
I
have been
so.
already, of course, but
I think so. I mean, obviously, what we've got with a lot of the qualifications is some of them are going to be calculated anyway, some of them will be assessed in a remote way, and some of them will be delayed. So as more of those as we can get assessed and use the equipment that obviously we have in FE colleges, sometimes that's necessary to complete licenses to practice, etc. Then of course we've offered that flexibility to colleges, and from what I've seen with colleges, they've shown great leadership throughout this period. They have, I think, been outstanding in terms of how much they've done online. And I've joined many virtual online classes, and they really are very interactive. They're super engaging, actually. And I think they're a platform that we'll use a lot more in the future because it works very well. Good. But they all know that, supplementing that with face-to-face teaching and with, specific tuition and specific uses of equipment that you only find in colleges is absolutely vital as well. Yeah. So we expect them to use the flexibility they've had and continue to show the leadership they have.
Okay, well, tonight's show is all about taking forward the quality agenda in apprenticeships, and I'll be talking to the Institute for Apprenticeship shortly. And at the end of the programme, ALP will be giving us their perspective on the reforms. What's your vision for improving the quality of apprenticeships and delivering on the Secretary of State's stated aims of an English apprenticeship and technical educational model that's seen internationally as better than Germany's by 2030?
I think we have the with T levels and some of the other changes we're making on apprenticeships. I think we've got the building blocks to really reform technical education in this country, and businesses are crying out for it. And we know that career-led study, which I like to call apprenticeships, is what I always referred to mine. It's a way of studying that is much more closely linked to your career and to employability and to your employment. And I think that's something that this country really wants. I think many parents want it, many young people want it. We have the ability to really build on some of those reforms to have the best technical education system. Why not? Why do we not have that capability? We've got some of the best companies, we've got some of the best research, some of the best science, some of the best teaching. So we can extend that to technical education. Okay. So I'm very, very optimistic about that, and it's absolutely vital because every young person deserves a quality opportunity, whether that's an apprenticeship, whether they do a T level, whether they go, and do the traditional route. They deserve a quality experience because they don't get to do that experience again.
No. Now, obviously got a decade as well to achieve that objective of leapfrog in Germany. But one of the criticisms that has been levelled at the current quality assurance system in apprenticeships is that there are arguably too many bodies, like the 18 or so external quality assurance providers, all doing different things to inconsistent standards. Are you and the government still committed to the recommendation in the Institute's recent consultation that only Ofqual and the Office for Students should lead, with oversight of IFATE, on the quality assurance of apprenticeships in future?
Well, I think it's very important that we get the quality assurance right. And, we have obviously started this new, the standards and the endpoint assessment and the organisations. And of course, we have to look at what's working, look at what we need to continue to, to focus on and what we can improve. I myself, I'm still open to looking at the various options in terms of how we can improve. But of course, the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education has played a vitally important role working with the employers, who ultimately will be the arbiters of quality and whether we get this right. So, we have to make sure the whole system works to deliver that quality. And that really is going to be judged by the employability of young people.
Okay. Finally, I just wondered if you could share with our listeners whether the decision has been made to extend the frameworks for a year, as the deadline, 31st of July, when they're meant to be switched off, is fast approaching.
We have confirmed that we will not be extending the deadline. We'll stick to the time of the 31st of July. Yeah. And the reason we've done that is taken a very practical approach as well, because we've obviously done a lot of work on the standards. The standards are all in place. We've also 75% of all apprenticeships are now on standards, and when we've looked at those that aren't, in pretty much every area, every sector, there are examples of people who've moved to standards. So we've given, I think it was October 2018 when we gave notice. Right, so this, it's been a very, very long, running to do this. Now, as always, sometimes some organisations might leave some things to the last minute, etc. But we believe that the standards are in place. There's 539 of them, and they're there, and therefore we're confident about switching off the frameworks and improving the quality of apprenticeships. And these are important steps to make sure that we do that.
Gillian Keegan, Minister for Skills and Apprenticeships in England. Thanks for joining me this evening. Pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.